Okay, everybody, we're continuing our reading of Martin Heidegger's Metaphysics. He's a German philosopher. Now, he can be difficult to understand in the beginning, right, if you're not familiar with him. But, however, if you continue through it, you will notice an improvement in your understanding of rhetoric. Okay? There's a reason why his works survive, right? And remember, this was originally in German. It's translated in English. We're on paragraph 122, page 177, the restriction of being. To put to work here means to bring into the work, a work within which, as what appears, the emerging that holds sway. Yes, exactly. A good piece of art. Something emerges from it. It holds sway. It is in itself beingness. In a way, it's there. Get it? Fusses comes to seem through the artwork as being that is everything else that appears, and what we can find around us first becomes confirmed and accessible, interpretable and understandable. Notice that. So everything else appears, we can find around us. It becomes confirmed, then accessible, then interpreted, then understood. As a being, or else as an unbeing. Because art, in a distinctive sense, brings being to stand to a manifestation in the work as a being. And I've seen some artwork that's done that. Art may be regarded as the ability to set to work pure and simple, as techne, setting to work is putting being to work in beings. Look at that. Setting to work is putting being to work in beings. A putting to work that opens up. Wow. Because if it opens up, it unfolds, it comes forth, it emerges. I get it. This opening up and keeping open, which surpasses and puts to work, is knowing. Okay, so the opening up stays open. That is going to help us to get to knowing. And it is knowing. The passion of knowing is questioning. Yes, that's true. Very true. Art is knowing and hence is techne. Art is not techne merely because it involves technical skills, tools, and materials with which to work. Exactly. You see how he said skills? Now, a lot of smug people will say, if you can't do a Renaissance piece of art, what you're doing is not really art. And then somebody who really is an artist, their work just speaks for itself. But that doesn't mean this modern art of like a banana stuck to a cardboard thing with a piece of duct tape on it. That's just money laundering, really. We all know it, okay? When you see these ridiculous paintings that are just what is that? It's absurd. Like a white canvas and like a red circle, and it's like $50,000. That's just people's money, buying things, giving money for that price so they don't have to pay taxes and stuff like that. It's a scam. It's a big crime scam, right? But folk art, like real art that you can see, like when you travel, right? Let's say you go somewhere and there's somebody selling some art on the street corner, and then you look at it and it spoke to you and you're like, you know what, that's just a painting of let's pick something interesting. Let's say it's a dragon. Let's say you're in China and there's a very cool painting of a dragon and you're like, oh, that moves me. You see what I'm saying? Like, it does something, you know what I mean? Thus, techne characterizes the dinon, the violence doing, and its decisive basic trait. For to do violence is to need to use violence against the overwhelming. Yeah, I mean, wait. You can use violence without being against an overwhelming force. Because if the overwhelmingness is in you, you're acting with the overwhelmingness, not just against it, right? If you are overwhelming your force, like you're overwhelming another energy and dominating and submitting. But sometimes people like use force when it isn't needed on something that isn't overwhelming. unless the passion within them is overwhelming. Let's see what he means if he clarifies. The knowing struggle to set being, which was formerly closed off into what appears as being. The knowing struggle to set being. It is a struggle to set being, then, essentially. If we take that to its logical conclusion. Number 2. Just as the denon, as doing violence, gathers up its essence into the fundamental Greek word techne, the denon, as the overwhelming manifestation in the fundamental Greek word daiki, which translate this word as fittingness. Oh, fittingness. Here we understand fittingness first, in the sense of joint and structure. Oh, it's fit for the job. It has structure. It's satisfactory. Okay, I follow. Then as arrangement. Yes, because if it has structure, it has an arrangement. It has a joint, it has an arrangement. As the direction that the overwhelming gives to its sway, finally as the enjoining structure, which compels fitting and compliance. Okay, so the use of violence, overwhelmingness, it appears as what is beings. And then when you understand that, you're seeing the fittingness. It has the fittingness, it has a sense of joint and structure. If it has a sense of joint and structure, then it has arrangement. If it has arrangement, then it has a direction that all can be overwhelming and keep us in its sway. If it keeps us in its sway, then it enjoins us in a structure, which then compels us to fitting in and complying with that said structure and that fittingness. Heidegger. He's crazy. When one translates daiki as justice and understands justice in a juridical moral sense, okay, so the justice, like, you know, the equality, though. Justice, that's a... he means in the moral sense, though. Juridical moral sense. Because we could get into, like, what is justice, right? What is justice to him? Justice to him? We could go on about that. Then the word loses its fundamental metaphysical content. The same holds for the interpretation of daiki as norm. In all its domains and powers, the overwhelming, as regards its powerfulness, its fittingness, being, phusis is as sway, originary gatheredness. Okay, so being is originary gatheredness. I think he went that earlier. Logos. Being is fittingness that enjoins daiki. Okay. Being, you have originary togetherness, you have fittingness, and you have an enjoining. Interesting. Thus, the denon as the overwhelming daiki and the denon as the violence-doing techne stand over against each other, although not as two present at-hand things. Okay, so it doesn't have to be binary and at hand? This over-againstness consists instead in the fact that techne breaks out against daiki, which for its part, because if it breaks out, that's the violent act he was talking about, right? For its part, as fittingness, has all techne at its disposal. At its disposal. Well, it is unfolding, right? It compels... Yes. The reciprocal over-againstness is... Let's repeat that. The reciprocal over-againstness is... Dang, Heidegger. Can he get more wordy on us? Can he get more wordy? It is only insofar as the uncanniness being human happens. Insofar as humanity essentially unfolds as history. And, yeah. I mean, that was... He wrapped it up for us pretty tight. Right? 3. The basic trait of denotaton, it's a hard word, lies in the reciprocal relation of the two senses of denon. The knower fares into the midst of fittingness, draws being into beings in the draft, and yet can never conquer the overwhelming. Wait, though, you just said we... Oh, okay, but that's the trait of denoton. Okay, because he earlier said we could. Thus the knower is thrown this way and that between fittingness and unfittingness. between the wretched and the noble. Every violent taming of the violent is either victory or defeat. Well, that's true. Reciprocal over againstness is, as he said, breaks out against Daiki. Being human happens. It's humanity is an unfolding. And then, yeah, okay. The taming of the violent is either victory or defeat. Bold statement, is it not?